Macca, Discord, YouTube, Facebook, how are we all going? Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by CrowCast, of course. A pretty average sort of a game that we had to endure today, and I just don't understand sometimes some of these decisions that people make, but never mind. Mate, how you going?
Well, I'm glad you're asking me now rather than during the game. I wouldn't have given you a very balanced response. I was pretty fuming right from the word go when I saw 4 tools in the forward line.
Oh, we're going to have a big discussion about that, mate.
I thought to myself, Hawthorn in the last few weeks are the best running team in the competition, the way they move the ball. And you've got 4 bloody tools. And Dermot Burton, he actually said in the first quarter that it worked for them in the first quarter because we actually competitive, and if we'd kicked straight, maybe we would have had a lead. But he said as the game goes on, the other players will get tired and they won't have reinforcements no fresh legs, and just too many tools.
I think the only people that couldn't see that was the bloody selection panel and the coach. So, look, let's get through the formalities first of all. As I mentioned, welcome to everyone who's joined us on Discord and on YouTube and on Facebook. If you haven't yet joined our Discord group, get around it. There's over 400 odd people in here and usually pretty good chat, not only on game day and during the streams, but also during the week. So get around it. For a bit of that action. Obviously, if you're watching us on YouTube and you haven't yet subscribed, it would be awesome if you could do so if you like the content. Helps us with the algorithm, etc., etc. And, share it amongst your Crows supporting fans, friends, if you've got any left, because I reckon we're dropping off a bit. we're dropping off a bit. So, anyway. All right, Mac. Why don't we just zip through the weekend's results real quick, and then we can talk about the disaster that we encountered this evening.
Yep. Well, we start off with I'm sorry, you want to lead off?
Yeah. We've only been doing this for 100 years, so...
I was too zippy, mate. Just too zippy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. All right, we started off on Friday night with the Power coming back from the dead to get over Carlton, 11-13-79 to Carlton 9-11-65. Port keeping their finals chances and top 4 chances alive with a 14-point win, Macca.
Yeah, look, I thought it was an excellent win by Port, to be honest, even though Carlton did have Macca out as a late withdrawal. I thought Carlton dominated the game early in the second quarter. They got to lead by 4 goals, but at half time, but and that was basically due to Curnow, Cripps and Walsh. But after half time, it was 7-1 by Port, and they just sort of ground away, and their more experienced players like Wines, etc. He was really, really good, and I got to hand it to Port Adelaide. It was a very good win because and what I didn't know before the game, but which I did hear after the game, I think they've won about 11 out of 12 at that particular ground. So. Yeah, it would have changed my tip otherwise if I'd known that.
Yeah, never mind. Look, they're still in it. It wasn't convincing. Carlton are sort of a bit up and down at the moment, and of course they lost McKay beginning of the game sort of thing, which, I don't know, they should be able to win a game with Curnow, but anyway. All right, next we had the Cats easily accounting for North Melbourne 16-10, 106, 40-point victors over North 10-6, 66.
Yeah, look, North were sort of competitive in the sense that they had Zeri was absolutely dominating the ruck. In fact, he's a good player. He's probably the most improved player in the competition this year. And Cheeseman was playing on the ball. He did well, but yeah, overall Geelong just too wise, just too strong, just too experienced. Stewart dominated once again, and I think he covers a lot of cracks in their whole team, Stuart. They move him around to cover him. I think North have got a future, but it's going to take them a year or two to get it.
Correct.
Geelong, they can't win the flag.
Oh, mate, it's a wide open race. It's a wide open race. Be careful.
I know. I keep making these predictions.
Yeah, you do. You do. The only one that you got right, well, maybe even not Collingwood, but we'll get to that. Okay, the Suns pretty much doing their dash by allowing Brisbane to beat them at home, 13-15, Brisbane 93, 28-point winners over the Suns, 9-11-65.
Yeah, there was all this talk before the game that Brisbane had lost their tools down back, but that didn't really matter. They put Hipwood down there and he didn't do too bad a job, but the real essence of the game was how Brisbane dominated the midfield. I mean, Neil's right back to his very, very best. Dunkley is a very good player. Zorko and Wilmot in the back lines, and they were far too good for Gold Coast, who was never really in that particular game.
No.
And I'd say Brisbane are possibly the form side at the moment.
Although it's best of a bad bunch at the moment. A lot of the top 8 sides are just sort of middling, and a few coming up like the Bulldogs and Hawthorn up through the pack. Anyway, we'll continue. Essendon dropping out of the 8, deservedly in my opinion, going down to St Kilda pretty comfortably, 17-6, 108 to 8-7, 53 points. I always thought Essendon were pretenders, and here we are.
Well, it puts our win over them into the right situation, doesn't it? And we carried on that form, and that wasn't good enough. No, Essendon, they weren't good enough either. And actually, it was very unlike the coach's game. Ross Lyons, they don't normally have games like that, but they just blew them away. Marshall dominating the rucks and still doing very well on the ball, and Sharman flying high up forward. They played like normal teams play, very open footy, and they played well.
Yep. And then we had the Giants getting up by 2 points. Very important win for the Giants, and certainly puts pressure on Melbourne. GWS 13-7-85, Melbourne 12-11-83.
Yeah, it didn't look like the Giants were going to lead at quarter time, but being 27 points down. But the two Greens, Hogan, Whitfield, etc., all their stars, they kept working away, and it was one thing very, very obvious. Gordon is playing injured, and while he's playing injured, Melbourne can't win. I mean, they
took a big risk playing him. Took a big risk.
Yeah, it backfired, mate. It backfired, and it's a bit of a problem because they can't win without him. And when they play him like that, well, he's not worth it anyhow. So Melbourne in trouble.
Right. And you've got to have a look at the D's list management committee. They've got rid of 2 A-grade ruckmen in the last 2 years. And
yes, I know. It's amazing.
Look where they are now. So poor list management, you could say. Over in the West, a very spiteful affair, Macca. The Freo Dockers getting up comfortably in the end by 35, 17-8, 1-1-0 to the Eagles, 11-9, 75.
Yep, it was a local derby that Freo was always going to win, in my opinion, and it had its compulsory melee, which they always have in their derbies. $5 match for punching. And the AFL bank would be a lot richer. I couldn't tell you how many people got fined. Bloody heap of them. Apart from that, Freo's midfield, they got a very good midfield. They were all on top. Brayshaw, Young, Sarong, far too good. And I've got to say, Harley Reid, I think he was West Coast best player. He is going to be a gun, that boy.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether he hangs around out west or whether he nicks off back to the big town. We had Collingwood doing what they had to do against Richmond. I wouldn't say it was necessarily convincing, but 26 points winners keeps them in the hunt, 14-9-93 to 9-13-67.
I think you summed the game up there in that little summary there, Feen. The only thing I would add to that was Dacos was absolutely outstanding with his 42 disposals, and wouldn't you love to have one of him as a father-son?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, they've been kissed on the backside by a fairy with those two boys.
Yep.
And
Nothing
then
else,
the Bulldogs, their form's trending upwards, Macca. Luke Beveridge hanging on for dear life, 12-15-87. Sydney just struggling with a few injuries and just come off their early season form. 7-6-48. You wouldn't have expected that.
never did. But when you look at it, the once invincible Swans are now beatable because they've now, I think, though, what is it? They've lost 4 games in their last 5 things, which
Yes.
I hadn't really taken into account. On the other hand, the Bulldogs were coming in with winning form in their last couple of games, and their midfield led by Treloar, he had 40 disposals. The Bont, of course, and Libber. And their tools up forward in Ugelhagen, Norton and Darcy, they gave Sydney a headache. And there weren't too many Sydney players that really played at their best. Gwilden, he played well, and Heaney played well, but, there were too many name players for Sydney that didn't do much.
Correct, Macca. Correct. And that was it, except for our game late. So we'll go through the ladder first of all, and we have, I'll just put it up so people can actually see it. Swan's still up on 56 points, but certainly coming back to the pack now. The Lions on 50 along with Freo. Carlton in the top 4 on percentage on 48 points. Carlton, GWS and Geelong and Port also on 48 points. So a bit of a logjam there in the back half of the top 8. Western Bulldogs sneak in with 44 points. And then we have outside the 8 on 44 points. What have they won? Like 9 of the last 12 after losing their first 5. Hawthorn, something like that. 44 points. Essendon slipping out on 42. Melbourne and Collingwood still in with a chance on 40, but they're going to have to get a wriggle on. Suns, you'd think, are out of it at 36. St Kilda 32. Adelaide on 30. Eagles on 12, North on 8, and Richmond also on 8, Macca. So really tightening up there in the top half of the 8. Brisbane are in good nick at the moment. Fremantle also in good nick, but it feels like any team on their day are gettable at the moment in that top 8.
Yeah, well, you have to say that now because the teams that were looking like nobody was going to beat them, Sydney were looking unbeatable at one stage, and that's disappeared as we know by the last 4 games, 5 games actually. You're quite right. I think it's. If I was the tab, I would think I would make a few quid here because people will be backing a lot of different teams to be the number 1 team.
Well, it's a long season, and a lot of clubs would say that form at this time of the year is not really indicative, and a few teams making a run like Western Bulldogs and Hawthorn, as we mentioned, and GWS have also been on a bit of a tear as well. So, I think being such a long season, I don't think we can rule anyone in or out at this stage, but certainly if you were framing a market at the moment, Macca, I reckon you'd have the Lions, Freo and the Giants with maybe the Cats sniffing around as well. Yeah.
Look, that could be the case, but as I say, I'll make predictions who won't make it, but I've got to withdraw all my other predictions who's going to make it.
Yeah. Anyway, look, let's move on to the main event because, my goodness me, Macca, what a disaster. The Crows, after being pretty much level at half-time, didn't kick another goal until the red time in the last quarter, 8-10-58. Hawthorn 19-10, 124, 66 points in the end. It could have been a whole lot more. Hawthorn absolutely destroyed us. And my word, talk about a turnaround from last week, Macca.
It was embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. That second half was embarrassing. I know that we had good players out. We had Dawson out. We had Rankin out. We had Murray out. And we had at full-back. He was out as well. I knew there was 4. There 4 really good players. But having said that, I still don't think that's a valid excuse to actually go a half of football bar the last 2 minutes without kicking a goal or even looking likely to kick a goal. I thought it was absolutely terrible. I thought the selection of the team was atrocious. The placement of some of the players was atrocious. Our man with the goat pictures, Murphy, as was pointed out by Dermot Burton, 3 times his opponent cleared out from half back and went forward without being chased at all by Murphy. And he kicked one of the goals himself and set up another 2. And Burton quite rightly pointed out that he's in the leadership group and he's not even putting in a proper effort. And I just wonder how that guy gets in every week.
Well, let's look at the lineups, Macca. I don't disagree with anything that you've said there, but let's start where I believe it was lost. As you mentioned, we lost Murray and Butts and Geordie Dawson, and a laid out was Brodie Smith. In came James Borlase, Taylor Walker, Daniel Curtin and Chase Jones. Daniel Curtin being named the sub. And we chose Hawthorn. We chose to try and stretch Hawthorn's defence, and we played taller than we probably should have against their forward line, because they're just a bunch of midgets up forward, pretty much.
Yep.
And in both cases, we were found absolutely wanting in terms of our tactical nous. I think the club, or I think Matthew Nixon and the selection committee outsmarted themselves once again, and it was very much a case of last week when they didn't play the way Nix would have preferred and made it a shootout, they won. And this week, the bloody coaches got involved and tripped over themselves, and as a consequence, we got slaughtered.
Well, it was interesting listening. You wouldn't have had a chance to hear Nick speaking after the game, I presume.
No.
I did that just before I came on, and I nearly vomited. He was challenged on that particular point about the 4 tools up forward. He said, well, it worked nicely in the first quarter. He said it was just the boys couldn't do it in the next 3 quarters. It wasn't that they made a bad bloody selection. It was they couldn't do it.
They actually made a conscious decision, Hawthorn, to make sure the ball got to ground, and then they just burnt us. Impey off halfback absolutely destroyed Murphy. Rochelle was no good defensively either, although he was slightly better than Murphy. We got absolutely pantsed coming up. Like, I think that I can't remember the statistic of the amount of goals that Hawthorn got from like score launches from the defensive half, and it was just horrific. And on what planet do you think that you're going to go in with 4 tools and be able to keep the ball in? So here's the thing, Mac, right? So we've said before that if you want to play that down the line sort of chippy thing, you need to have the players to be able to bail out and contest in the air, right? Otherwise, you want to move the ball quickly, right? So this week, what do? We have the players to be able to kick the ball in long and all the rest of it. And what do? We play it fast. At no stage did we try and slow the ball down, and we relied on our midfielders being able to run like Olympic steeplechasers up and back to try and block the ball in. When it was the most contradictory game plan you would ever see, because we got the ball into the forward line so quickly, bombing it on people's heads, that we never gave the opportunity of our midfielders and our high half forwards to actually push up and cause secondary stoppages when the ball came to the deck. And every time it came to the deck, particularly after quarter time, Hawthorn just waltzed it out. And because we were too busy trying to run back to block up, they just turned us around and got us over the back. And it happened time and time again. And at no stage did Nix try to slow the game down. It was bloody ridiculous. It was the most stupid piece of coaching I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, you would say that on that performance, you'd say maybe that's a coach maybe coaching his first game ever because he doesn't seem to know what's going on. It was bloody hopeless, absolutely hopeless. There was not one thing right about it, not one thing right. Firstly, leaving Elliot Himmelberg there as a fourth tall, he had 3 disposals for the game fee, 3 bloody disposals.
Yep.
What? Oh, a player could have played there. Somebody who could have got the bloody ball. In fact, I reckon against Hawthorn, we only really needed 2 tools, if anything. And we just had, but we had 4. And the 2 that, as you said, quite rightly, you picked out Rochelle as well. He did try a little bit harder than Murphy, but they were both guilty of allowing their opponent to clear the ball too easily. And I suppose that's bloody hard, though, when you've got when they've got maybe 4 smalls at ground level, and we've got 2.
But what we were doing, Macca, and this is where it all comes unstuck. If you actually watch how we were moving the ball, we were using Murphy and Rochelle pretty high, so they were coming up as those as the conduit in transition, which meant that we had no smalls up forward. Right, it was only Ben Keys basically. So because we played our 2 half forwards up high, they kept getting turned around, and then they weren't pushing back. They weren't putting any defensive pressure on. It was just the most incoherent game plan I think I've ever seen from a professional coaching staff, where they thought arrogantly that we've got so much marking power. All we've got to do is bomb it into our forward line, and one of them will take a mark. There was where's the what if the ball comes to ground scenario on the whiteboard? Because there wasn't one. You can't play your half forward up high and be a transition conduit and leave 4 talls, one of which is Tex Walker, who is about as manoeuvrable as a broken down car. The other one's Elliot Himmelberg, who's similarly not very manoeuvrable. You got Darcy Fogarty, who's not too bad, but he's a big fella. And then you've got Riley Thilthorpe coming back from a knee who's 200 centimetres. What do you think is going to happen if you don't put smalls at their feet?
But it's insanity. It's nothing short of insanity. And as I said, to make it worse, in his presser, he said it worked in the first quarter, and he said, and the players didn't do it in the last 3 quarters. He didn't say we made a mistake. And actually, one of the guys who was asking the question asked that particular question, do you think you made a mistake? And he actually, I can't tell you what his answer was, but it was just waffle that didn't make sense and didn't answer the question. And what really got me riled up after that, he said, now he's finally realised mathematically we don't make the final 8. But what he said is, but we are going to try and win every last game from here. We'll bring in some experience. I thought, you bloody idiot. We're going to bring in some experience, and we're going to try and win our last 4 games. And I thought to myself, this man is mad. He's mad.
You could see the contrast between the 2 sides. And let's remember that Hawthorn and Adelaide are pretty much on a very similar rebuild trajectory. In fact, Hawthorn probably started a year after us. But the difference is that their young mids have got an extra 20 games into them, because we delayed our development of Saligo and Taylor and Dowling and these blokes. So they're 20 or 30 games behind in their development. We should be, we started a year in front of Hawthorn in terms of our development, and here we are probably a good 12 to 18 months behind in our development, because even when those young lads were being played, they were being played in the wrong positions. So it's no wonder that Hawthorn towed us up, particularly in the centre stoppages, because not only have we got a bloody... I reckon the Eiffel Tower on the Olympics moves more than Riley O'Brien in the ruck. And, we've got out-muscled and outplayed often in the centre clearances, just through a difference in experience and physical development.
Well, you're 100% correct there. Also, they did have a very quality midfielder in Will Day as well, and but they're young boys. And Newcombe's also got a guy they sort of picked up very cheaply for nothing.
Dylan Moore played well. I mean, they had their midfield was ticking over nicely.
Yeah, no, they ran quite a few players through their midfield, and they were all young blokes, and they all did very well. And I don't know, I don't know what to say, because what we saw was stupidity and madness, and yet the coach doesn't seem to be able to recognise it, or doesn't want to admit it.
But the thing is, Macca, the previous week on a fast deck against a team who we hadn't beaten for 1,000 years on a ground that suited them, with a very dynamic midfield, we basically went head to head with them, played an attacking, aggressive style of game, and we were able to put 9 goals on them. Yes, they ended up putting 8 back on us, but we ended up winning that game. And I think that was completely against the coach's instructions, because there's no way that Nix would have set up to play a shootout against Essendon on Marvel, and it just turned out that way, and we were the better team. This week, the hands of Nix and the coaching staff and the selection committee are all over how we played. And it was a complete mess. And you could tell by halfway through the third quarter, the players were completely confused. And by the last quarter, they were completely disengaged, because they were done. They'd run their asses off for the whole game, going with the ball going back and forth over their head like piggy in the middle, because our structure and our game style was completely, like I said, incoherent. He didn't set us up to be cohesive. If he wanted us to play 4 tools, he should have been pushing Tex and Fogg up to be those link men up high, and leaving Rochelle and Murphy deep for Thilthorpe and whoever else was down there. But no, we kept all our tools deep. Half the time they were jumping against each other, and meanwhile Murphy and Rochelle are halfway up the ground, because they're the blokes that were supposedly supposed to be playing high. So by the time they turn around and come back, the ball's coming back over their heads. I mean, it was so bloody obvious, and I can't understand why a professional coach cannot see that happening.
Well, the only thing wrong with what you said, you called him a professional coach. He's not professional.
He's getting paid professionally. He's getting paid professionally, Macca, and we're a professional organisation, and we're supposed to be a bloody professional football club, and this is just bloody madness. It was absolute madness.
I agree, he's supposed to be professional, but I wouldn't call him professional. You can't call him professional after what he did today. If there was a gong for stupidity as a coach, for the year, he would have won it today. Would have had to have won it. That was like setting your team up for failure right from the word go.
It was such a simplistic thing. Oh, Hawthorn have got a small defence. Let's load up with tools. What happens when the ball hits the ground, Matthew?
Yeah, there were a lot of questions on 5AA2. People ringing up saying, why the hell was this bloke signed up? I think it was at gather round time. And when the chairman was asked why did he sign him, and the answer was, why not? Well, but I think we know why not.
Even when you look at how we brought Chase Jones in, I'm not quite sure why. We're still playing Luke Nankervis deep in defence. We played Billy Dowling back behind the ball, and we bring in James Borlace, who didn't really have a matchup.
He didn't, but when he did, he was still no good. I thought he was pretty poor, actually.
Well, he was, because he wasn't the right player to bring in. We didn't need that type of player to come in. They were never going to stretch us. I think their tallest bloke was bloody Deer, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
They played their rucks. They played their rucks deep at times, but they're a small side, Hawthorn, or they certainly were this week, and we were completely mismatched with them. And there's got to come a point where the board and the GM of footy and all the rest of it actually have a look at what the coaching panel are doing and saying, hang on a minute, that doesn't make any bloody sense.
Well, the interesting thing is that while he was being questioned, and Nick's sort of out the blue just said, he said that maybe this is not right, and maybe that's not right, but I am the right man for the job. And I thought to myself, why did you say that? Do you think, are you under pressure? And I hope he is. I hope that they are starting to get doubts.
But I think it's incredibly arrogant for a coach to say I'm the right man for the job. That's like me saying I'm the best bloody ping pong player. Like, results, a coach will get judged on his results. A player will get judged on their results. Anyone in business gets judged on results. And if you have to start saying you're the best, then generally that reflects a level of insecurity. And so he's clearly insecure about his job, but I think he's also got a bit of imposter syndrome, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to argue with that. But as I said, that sort of came out the blue, and I had the same thoughts as you. Is that he may have been put up under a little bit of pressure with this review, and this won't help his situation at all, I don't think. But I still think they're so pissed weak they'll do nothing about it.
Well, look, it's quite possible. It's quite possible, and you reap what you sow in that regard, don't you? And it's one of those things where if the club, again, will live and die by results, and if the coaching staff aren't getting results and the club and the board aren't proactive enough to do something about that, then they're all going to eventually be judged the same way.
Yeah, look, there's a very good tweet out there, comment out there, and I'll just read it. As shit as Nick says, it's not totally his fault. He's assistant to a bunch of dweebs who, put it bluntly, do as much as I am frustrated with Nick. In a way, I feel sorry for him because of his personality of compliance with the club. They have screwed himself over in regards to good help and assistance, and I think there is some truth in that.
Look, maybe, but I don't think you can blame assistants.
I don't think we've got it, but I don't think we have a great set of assistant coaches.
Look, maybe Macca, but I just don't think you blame assistants. I think assistants can add value. But at the end of the day, there's a management committee, like there's a selection committee and there's a head coach, and those two entities and individuals, they're the ones charged with the responsibility of getting results.
Oh, that's right. It's like a manager of a company who's he's got 4 line managers underneath him. Well, he in the end gets the blame for it. He becomes accountable for their performance. So you're quite right. There's no doubt. I'm not letting Nick's off the hook here, but I'm just saying that it's sort of compounded in a way by Nick's not being any good, but then not having much quality help to help him.
Yeah, but I think
the whole
Macca, yeah. Oh, well, I don't disagree with that, but I think the head coach sets the agenda. The head coach tells the assistant coaches what he's trying to achieve, the style of game that he wants to play, what he wants the players to do, and then the assistant coaches implement that. So the assistant coaches don't act independently. It was quite interesting, actually. Andy Collins was shown in the telecast there on the Hawthorn bench, and Andy Collins was West Adelaide's coach when my lad was playing under 18s there, and Andy Collins told the whole freaking club how they were going to play. So his style was not only at league level, but it was also at reserves and under 18s and under 16s. The head coach set the agenda, and it's no different at AFL level. The head coach sets the agenda. He instructs the assistants what he wants them to do, and they have to implement. So I don't subscribe to passing any blame onto the assistants. Yes, they might be good or bad. I think they're only no good if they're not implementing what the head coach wants, and there's no evidence of that, in my opinion.
No, look, as we said before, and I am in agreement with that. At the end of the day, I added that in as a possible contributing factor that doesn't help. But at the end of the day, the coach is the ultimate leader. He's the ultimate final decision maker, so it does have to rest with him. And I honestly don't think he's good enough. I think he didn't do a bad job in the early parts of the rebuild. We've got to a stage now where I don't think. Well, we could have and should have been in the 8 last year. So we've gone absolutely backwards this year. Absolutely backwards.
Well, Surf's in the chat. Macca. Surf's in the chat makes a really good point. Matthew Nix won this job over Craig McRae and Adam Kingsley. So I think the people that have made that judgment need to be held accountable, because clearly they're either not asking the right questions or they're not assessing talent and ability correctly.
Yep. But what you said, that's quite astonishing when you think about it.
Yeah. So, all right. So the lineup was completely blown out of the water, and yes, it worked for about 15 minutes until Hawthorn adapted, as any good coach will. We could see what's going on, right? How do we adapt that? And basically all they did is made sure that the ball came to ground. And we helped them out because we didn't spread our forward line at all. So we had blokes going up against each other. We had a crowd of 4 talls and no smalls there. So, and we had our transition basically. Even Darcy Fogarty, I didn't see until right towards the end. I didn't see anyone lead, because I think when you got all that tall timber and the coach is basically saying we're going to stretch them with our height, then immediately the midfield thinks, well, all we need to do is stick it on their heads, and that's exactly what happened.
Well, I grade the players into 3 categories after the game, into good, medium, and poor, and I'm afraid I have to put Fogarty in the poor category, because I don't think he did the right thing. He was captain for the day. He should have been leading and trying to help make open spaces so that they weren't always a cluster of big blokes.
I disagree, but when the ball's getting kicked in high, Macca, because that's what our transition players were doing. There was a few offenders of just spraying the ball in. What are you going to
do? The disposal coming in from some of the players was terrible.
It was horrific.
Absolutely terrible. Yeah.
So, it was horrific. And yes, all right, Fogg was captain and could have done a few things. I mean, we had our 938 game veteran Tex Walker down there. He might have been able to say a couple of things as well, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I'd have to agree with you.
Isn't he getting picked to lead and to espouse his wonderful knowledge? I don't know. I'm being a bit facetious there, but look,
a little bit. I think that was a little bit sarcastic, but it's true. It is true. But I think he's not 100% fit. There's no doubt about that. And
anyway, let's move through. Let's move through the stats, shall we, and get through that, and then we'll have a bit more of a discussion. And of course, don't forget we're live and interactive, so we have 27 people in our live studio audience tonight. So thank you everyone who's joined us, and if anyone wants to tee off and have their say, then go right ahead. Stick your hand up, and we'll get you on. All right, so going through here, disposals. Look at that, 363 to 307 disposals. That's 46 more disposals. They had 14 more kicks and a whopping 42 more handballs, Mac, because they just ran through us, didn't they? Because they had us turned around all the time. Inside 50s, 41 to 58. Our disposal efficiency was woeful because their pressure was really good, because we allowed them to push up and give us frontal pressure, weren't prepared to run through them. So 68.7% to 76.3%. Our efficiency inside 50, because we thought all we had to do was bomb it in, was 43.9 compared to 53.4. Free kicks, we can't complain about the umpires, even though they were quite inconsistent, 25 to 18. At stoppage, 51 to 42. Didn't see any clear with them, but I thought that the Hawks rucks got some more effective hit-outs away. We won the clearance stat, but we got towered up in centre, and that showed around stoppage 31 to 20. But they just seemed to play that hemming in style. We couldn't get a lot of separation out of our stoppage clearances.
Yeah, they do that. You're quite right about that.
Yep. Contested posies, 142 to 134. Uncontested, 165 to 222. That just shows that Hawthorn got so much free ball. At times it was embarrassing how they were just running through the corridor, and you see blokes like Laird not putting in an effort, and Murphy not putting in an effort, and Rochelle not putting in efforts. You just wanted to hook them off the ground. Turnovers pretty even, 66 to 62. Time in possession, 40% to 42%. Hawthorn were just far more efficient with ball in hand. Marks 71 to 81, despite us having 93 tools on the ground. Marks inside 58 to 10, despite us having 43 tools up forward. Contested marks 6 to 8, despite us having 43 tools around the ground. So that tactic really worked, didn't it, Mac? Jesus.
How many did we end up in total on the field?
I don't think it would have mattered if we had 43 tools on the ground. Tackles 78 to 69, chasing all day. Tackles inside 50. Look at that stat, Macca. Look at that stat. 5 tackles inside 50, and that is exactly illustrative of my point. At no stage did we have smalls at ground level. At no stage.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. And that's why it was just sheer madness. And so it was shocking coaching. It's disgraceful coaching. And, if I was a club, if I was the chairman of that club, I would actually want Nix's like a schoolboy to come and face me, and I would be telling him if he ever pulled anything like that ever again, he's out the door. In fact, I would probably have him out the door before, but I would actually treat him like a bloody dumb kid, because that's what this move was that of a dumb person.
It was. Now we got Baxter wanting to have something to say. Welcome aboard, Baxter. I hope your microphone's working. How are you going, mate?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you guys?
Yeah, well, we're probably pissed off like you are, Baxter.
Yeah, well, I just got home and I had to jump on the cast. I had to voice my concern,
Tell us about it.
Yeah, I was watching Himmelberg, and be honest, he looks so uninterested in playing. He looks non-competitive at times. A game that was supposedly playing for finals, like a 0.6% chance, thought we'd be playing a little bit tougher. He looks like he's already packed his bags, in my opinion,
Fair comment.
Well, he's always been laconic. He's always lacked that, to the outsider, he's always lacked that urgency.
No killer.
And, he took, I think, 1 contested mark today. But he's not in the right places. He's not. Doesn't offer he gets bumped off the ball too easily. He's just got no strength about him for such a big fella.
Yeah, and I think he's been in the system for 8 years. He's been on our list for a while. You'd probably expect a bit more. My opinion at least. I was also going to comment on I felt like Nix had no answer after half time. We went into our shells. We felt a bit like they kicked a few goals on us. Most teams get a run on. They score 4 or 5 goals, and we just got no answer for them. And we just start chipping to the back pockets. Then long down the line, it's just rinse and repeat. It's just so annoying.
Well, it was today, mate. It was very much that. It was we went in with one plan, and we selected the team to an extent that we didn't have the personnel to change the way that we were doing things. We had no flexibility or versatility in our side because we were so tall. J&M, thanks very much for that, mate. With the super chat, appreciate that. If anyone wants to do that, there's a little button down there for those on YouTube. Yeah, it just didn't. We didn't leave ourselves any other options, did we?
Yeah, it was very frustrating.
I just have to read. Hang on. I just need to read J&M's super chat because he's paid for it. I've seen a dog turd on a 40-degree day smell less than Lachlan Murphy. Keep up the good work, chaps. Good work.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Now, Baxter, how did you see Led's game?
Oh, mate, I was gonna say something about Laird. You know, he gets the cheap hand passes from out the back, or he gets the cheap balls. But I thought he did some good stuff like around the contest. But when they break out, he looks so uninterested in chasing and defending. I saw Hawks. I reckon Jarman MP blew out through the middle, and that's when he scored that goal. And Laird just gave up chasing. Just stopped.
There was another one where I forget who it was. Hawthorn player sort of centered the ball off sort of the wing to half forward, and they got a goal. And Laird was running, and he literally just watched the ball go past him. It was a bit of a mongrel kick, and he could have stuck a hand out or stuck a foot out or something like that, but he literally just watched the ball go past him. It was a disgusting effort.
Yeah, well, the way I saw it, and there's somebody in the chat that's got it absolutely right, that he gets a lot of the ball because no one bothers picking him up because he can't hurt you with the ball. Look, he had 29 disposals, and you'd say a bloke that's in a side that got a thrashing played a good game, but he didn't. I mean, his 29 disposals were shocking. I don't remember any of them that led to goals.
Have you ever seen Rory Laird get tagged? Baxter, have you ever seen Rory Laird get tagged?
I don't think so. You know, the opposition just let him get his, 29, 30 plus. He does. It's like him and Crouch, they don't do anything with it,
They don't hurt.
Hard to watch. But
no, it was interesting because, as I said, he stood out. And that's the reason why I asked you, because if he went on disposal, you'd say, gee, he must have played a good game. And in fact, in the write-up, they actually gave him second best player, and I thought he had a lot to answer for, because he's got 29 cheap kicks, and then most of them on his own, and to nobody. And he's also got an opponent. Where's his opponent? What's his opponent doing? So, he was one of the problems. I thought that although he tried very hard, I thought Berry was down on his form today. Not lacking effort, but not much.
Just seemed to be a step behind. Do you know, it's interesting. And Baxter, you got anything else to say before we move forward?
Oh, yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it, mate. No, go for it.
Yeah, no, I'm letting it rip tonight. I was just going to say, Keane and Ball Ace down back, just got exposed big time. Keane looks... I don't know why Keane seems so far off his opponent at times. And Ball Ace just got... I mean, you could just our defensive stocks just got exposed, I reckon, today. Big time.
Possibly Keane's worst game for us, I thought.
Yeah.
I think in Kane's defence, he's still learning the game, and I think at times he gets confused with his positioning. And I think he certainly struggles when one of Butts or Murray isn't there to cover, or actually Worrell is the one that he seems to work very well with. But when you've got two of them down there, Keane and Borlase, we're very, very exposed. Very, very exposed, because neither of them, I think, are terribly smart players. They're all, just sort of straightforward sort of players. They don't have that football smarts that say a Josh Worrell has. And, they named Josh Worrell on the emergency bench, or they named him in the squad of 25. I can't understand that. If he's fit enough to play, he's first picked, in my opinion, in that defence. So if he's fit enough to play, why don't you play him?
Yep.
I reckon he would have been I reckon Worrell would have been top 5 in our best and fairest before he got injured. He was in
I agree.
Career best form easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you make a bloke like Josh Worrell, who's proved himself. If that was Tom today, he would have been straight back in.
Yep.
And Josh has proven himself to be as useful as today in his prime, and probably more versatile in some respects because he plays a bit taller. And he certainly, I reckon he has a very positive influence on Mark Keane's game. So if he was fit, they should have bloody played him. I don't understand why they didn't.
Yeah, I was going to give benefit of the doubt to Mark Keane. He's still learning the game. But, probably just need to be a little bit tighter. But
and I think I think Feen raised a good point though. With no Butts there or no other senior bloke there to help him. He had Borlase who was bloody pathetic. So I mean, I don't rate Borlase. I wish Port would come and say, would you trade Borlase to us and give us something for him to get rid of him?
Well, he's a break glass kind of defender, in my opinion. He's not. You can't, like, we played him as our one of two tall defenders, and as I said earlier, he didn't really have a matchup, and so he was on players that were always going to outsmart him or outpace him. It just wasn't the right selection. As I said, I don't know why they didn't pick Worrell instead of him.
Well, Worrell coming back would have played, even with no games under his belt just after the break, he would have played about 10 times better than Borlase can play.
Well, apparently he tore it up in the SANFL, so there you go. What a waste.
Absolutely.
Keep firing back. Got anything else, mate?
All right. Well, let's see. Yeah, I was going to say I wrote a couple names down. I thought they could hold their heads up high after the game. Yeah. I thought Hinge tried his guts out to the end. Like I saw him, I think I saw him sprint down the wing to chase down CJ. I thought, he's probably one of the only ones trying towards the end. I thought Saligo was pretty good in the midfield. I thought Nankervis was pretty good down back.
Solly's disposal was pretty rough today, particularly by foot.
Yeah, he had no other people. He was the one like lifting everyone up, but he had like barely anyone going with him in that midfield. We just got pantsed by Newcomb and Day.
Yeah,
I thought we were pretty small there as well. Like they're pretty big-bodied midfielders, and I think we had like Laird, Taylor, and Saligo, which they're not the tallest midfield. Like we look really small out there without Dawson.
Yeah, Bax, I totally agree with you with the three blokes you've named. There was nothing wrong with their effort at all, those blokes. I thought, Hinge was I thought he was good. And was it Nankervis you mentioned?
Yeah.
I thought he was good. And I thought Saligo is a very courageous player. He goes into areas in the midfield where a lot of other players just pull out. And I think he's very brave. And I agree about the kicking was maybe not up to scratch, but I would never ever knock that bloke for the effort that he gives us. He's a very courageous player.
Oh, 100%. And as someone mentioned in the chat, he does try to move the ball forward. He's very good, like I said last week, at keeping his feet in congestion. He just didn't have enough mates.
No.
I mean, you saw how good his kicking was last week against Essendon. I think Vardy Magic posted on Twitter a clip of him. It was like a 45-metre kick, I reckon through 3 or 4 people that laced someone out, and then off we went on towards a goal. Might have just been an off game for him, but just needed some other people to go along with him. Look,
possibly. He's been carrying a groin. Maybe he was struggling to get separation. I'm not sure, but he looked a bit hurried with his kicking, and it wasn't up to the same standard. But as you say, you never die wondering. I mean, he was our top possession winner for the game, and it's very interesting. I'll just point something out. Last week, for those that pay any attention to what I say, it was interesting to note that we didn't have the top disposal getters in that game against Essendon, but we had a very even spread around the 20 to 22 sort of disposal mark.
Yeah, good point.
Today it was the opposite. We had Saligo with 30, Scholl with 29, Laird with 29. Hawthorn had Newcomb with 22, Dylan Moore with 21, Walpole with 20, Will Day with 20. So they had a far more even spread through their midfield, and we relied on a couple. You mentioned Sam Berry. Sam Berry was disappointing today, and for our cold-faced midfielder only to get 12 touches and 6 kicks, and went at 58% disposal efficiency, That's probably the first down game Sam's had in a month, and he just couldn't get going.
The pity, because he was coming off, I thought, one of his best games last week. So he didn't carry it on. And another player who I thought definitely deserves credit is young Scholl. You know, we used to bag him, and he would think he'd fainted. Somebody said boo, but I just think he has taken a couple of courage pills, and he's worked very bloody hard. And he had 29 disposals and 6 tackles, and I thought he was very, very good.
Yeah, it wasn't his best kicking day, but he didn't shirk it, and we've discussed that at length. I think we can probably put that conversation to bed about Lockie's heart muscle. I think he shows a lot of courage these days. Baxter, thanks very much, mate. Appreciate you coming on.
Cheers, boys. Enjoyed the chat.
And Macca will send you a Sammy's gift voucher, mate.
Oh, thanks, Mac.
No, he won't.
Good on you. Thanks, mate.
All right, cheers, boys.
If anyone else wants to come on, feel free. I'm quite happy to have as many people on to vent. It's like a group therapy session after one of these matches. But look, let's look at some individuals while we're talking about it. Saligo with 30 touches, 13 and 17. 66.7% disposal efficiency. Had only the 4 clangers, but I reckon there are a few more than that. Rebound 50s 1, inside 50s 5, 372 metres gained, but 19 contested possessions, pardon me, Mac, which is an illustration of what you're saying before. He puts himself in all the time, rarely goes to ground, always trying, and you'd never question his work rate or his effort.
Yeah, and I think he's absolutely fearless. Some of those balls he goes through in the midfield, a sensible man wouldn't go there because you can only get hit, but he still goes there. He's very, very courageous, and he takes knocks very well. In fact, he comes out smiling. I like him. I think
he enjoys the contest, I think. Scholl, as you said, 29 disposals. I was actually a bit surprised he was that high, 19 and 10. As mentioned, just a little bit down on his efficiency, but still had 19 effective disposals, got us 377 metres gained, 3 inside 50s. The only thing I would say about, and it's not a knock on Lockie, but I think it's the way we're playing at the moment, he gets a lot of ball off half-back. I'd love him to be the one delivering into our forward 50 a bit more often.
I think that was the way the game was played, though, today. I mean, the ball was down there in a lot more than was ours, so it was natural he's going to be leading into the back lines rather than the other way around, and making an attacking forays because, well, it was the rest of the team letting it down and the ball's down the wrong end.
Yeah, well, that's very true. The problem is when he's down there, he's not one of the blokes that's feeding it in, and he's the bloke that you want feeding in because he's got quite a good kick. He's often kicking under pressure out of defence, and you'd like to have him the last man in the chain transitioning to forward 50.
Oh, look, I totally agree with that, but I think the circumstances just didn't allow it today.
Luke Nankervis, as you said, again, playing completely too far deep in defence, 22 touches, 14 and 8. He's very composed. Not everything he does comes off, but I like the way that he is always thinking and always trying, and I wouldn't want anyone to suppress that. But I just think he's wasted at deep in defence, Mac.
Yeah. Look, I think it's been a good year for him, though. I think he's had a good year at halfback, and players that, I think for developing players, halfback's a good spot to develop, and his next move could be up to a wing. He might even get him to give a run on the ball occasionally, something like that. But I think it's been a good year for him because I think he's just overall he's not a dour defender. He's quite a dashing defender actually. When he gets it, he does try and do something positive with it.
Yeah, no, I don't. Like, I'm not saying he's playing badly. I'm saying he's playing very well. I just think we get more value out of him if we were playing him in the correct position. And then we didn't have another person on this list until Mitch Hinge down at 17 touches. And in between Nankervis and Hinge was pretty much where Hawthorn won the game. Moore, Amon, Warple, Impey, Day, Ward, Tisley, Scrimshaw, Nash. I mean, all those blokes, they spread the ball around so much. Hinge played all right. A couple of average kicks, I think he's actually prone at times to try and do too much because he hasn't got a lot of support. 11 kicks, 6 handballs, 65% disposal efficiency. His kicking efficiency is only at 45.5% though, Mac. 318 metres going a little bit down. But
that's low.
It's very low for him. Again, often playing quite deep, having to do a lot of aerial work despite us having Keane and Borlos. And I wouldn't say it was one of his better games, Hinge, but again, another one like Saligo that doesn't, you never question his effort.
No, I 100% agree with that. And there was one other player that I thought that his effort was great. Not his best game, but Michael Lenny, I thought he was in the tick department. He had 16 disposals with 4 tackles, and he worked his arse off. And I think he's going to get a match, I think, for a punch that he gave somebody. But
if his name's Zach Butters, he'll only get a $500 fine, won't he?
Yeah, but he plays for the Crows, and you know what happens with the Crows, mate. We get
the Crows tax.
The Crows tax. That's a good way of putting it, man.
Yeah, no, look, Max played all right. Billy played all right, out of position.
Billy Dowling, he was good.
Yeah,
played good.
Keane, I thought, we've spoken about him, he was fairly average. Riley O'Brien, I thought, tried, but was pretty ineffective in the ruck, I felt. So we get down to Josh Rochelle, and I actually thought that Josh, I saw him around contest once, Macca, and he got the clearance. And I just wish that they would see. I just wish that they could see that for all his inadequacies, he is a clearance machine. Why don't they allow him to, as Matthew Nix has always said, use his weapon?
Well, it's a very good point you make, because I remember the clearance that he got, because it was a very classy clearance actually, and made it look so easy to do.
Yep.
And like Saligo bashes and crashes his way through, but Rochelle did it very classily, and I thought to myself, exactly what you thought. Why the hell isn't he there more often?
Yep. I've been saying it for weeks and weeks and weeks, Mackie. You know that people must be sick of me saying it, but he's got a lot of deficiencies. I think he's got to have a bit of a think about his attitude and particularly his concentration levels. I think he does too much on autopilot because that's how he's been able to do it at underage. And I think he needs to work on his concentration and his ability to remain in the contest. But he just knows where to go around stoppage.
No, he does, and I think he should be used a lot more. And I think he probably enjoyed a lot more too.
Yeah. Chase Jones was rubbish in my opinion. Didn't get the pace of the game. He always tries because that's his his effort. But I don't think he was the right choice to come in.
No, I had him in the. I didn't have him in the good. I didn't have him in the poor. He was in between there. I thought that. He had 13 disposals and 4 tackles, which isn't a reasonable game. And it's not too bad, but not startling. He wasn't disgraced.
Only 1 rebound 50 from Chase, and I think that type of player needs to be able to hurt the opposition on the rebound. And I just don't think we get this year. Last year he was far better. He was getting good meters off halfback, but this year he doesn't seem to be able to replicate that, whether it's confidence or whether it's what he's being asked to do. But we're just not getting enough rebound out of Chase when he plays.
Yeah, I had him in the maybe list.
Yeah, Carol from Facebook. Thanks, Carol, for mentioning that. I didn't see it, but apparently there was a 5AA interview where Jake Saligo said if the team was playing well, he wouldn't have been given time in the middle, and the younger players would not have been selected. And therein lies the tale of the season, doesn't it? Thanks, Carol, for pointing that out, because we've been saying the same thing. Every time a youngster has been selected, it's been on the back of injuries. Every time a youngster's been trusted with a position, it's because of an injury. And, Nix is already talking in his post-match about we struggle with inexperience and we need to bring experience back in and all that sort of stuff. That's it in a nutshell, isn't it?
Well, that comment plus his interview tonight, and I don't like the guy. I want him to go. I've had a gut feel of him. I'm just sick of the excuses, sick of the stories, sick of the bullshit. It's what happens. It's what he does. When you look at what he does, it's not the right thing. No, he's the wrong guy for the job, in my opinion. He did all right to get us to a certain stage. He's got to go. That's my opinion.
Look, I think another player that was underutilised this week was Ben Keys. I think he could have utilised Keysy a bit better. I think that Keys would have been a really good run with Will Day when he got off the chain a bit, because Sam Mitchell put a bit of time into it up forward and he didn't have a lot of free run at the ball. Right. Given the form that Ben's been in over the last few weeks, I would have had him up around the contest a bit more, particularly when we started getting run over in the third quarter. I would have had him in amongst the fray just to add a bit of energy.
Far too late. When I saw him go on the ball there, it was far too late. Birdies had flown. They'd all gone home, laid their eggs. Yeah. Coach can't coach.
Zach Taylor, I actually thought Zach Taylor struggled with the pace of the game today. I feel like he's another one who's got that nice little step and composure in the contest. I just feel like he didn't get enough outside ball, and I felt like he found it difficult to find space. So I think that'll come with a bit more of a tank and maybe a little bit more muscle on the frame. But today was pretty frenetic in that midfield contest, and I think he just struggled with the pace of it. Well,
pace and strength. I watched him very closely. He's certainly not frightened. He
no, not at all. Yeah,
but he got brushed off 2 or 3 times. But I actually sort of give him a half pass, because in the sense that I thought he does have a real crack, and he did some nice little things as well. But as you said, he just didn't have quite this stage the body and the experience to match it with the more hardier members of the opposition.
When he spent a lot of time in the midfield, and I think that would be he would have been the perfect bloke to swap out for Keys, and just let him run around up forward for periods of time. Just to give him a little bit of a break. He just seemed, he only had 9 touches. He only had 3 kicks. And considering the amount of time he spent in the midfield rotation, he should have had more than that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not saying he played a great game. I'm just saying I do like the fact he's got the courage to have a crack, and at this stage he hasn't quite got the meat or the strength, but I think he'll be very good next year. Yeah.
Braden Cook, I'm ready for Braden to have a spell in the twos. I've been saying it for a little while. It's such a contradiction that they would persevere so long with Braden and yet not play others.
Correct.
And I don't mind the fact that they persevere with Braden, but I think Braden has got to go back and find the agate. I think Braden needs to learn how to put together a 25 disposal game.
Correct. 100%. 100%, mate. On the money.
I think he's got it in him, but from his junior days where he was kind of an opportunist sort of a player, and he's been picked in the A's for the Crows very much on skill and, a forward projection of his ability. And that's great. He's shown us enough, I think, in terms of his talent to say, yeah, there's definitely something to work with there. But I think they need to plonk him in the guts or on a wing at SANFL level and say you need to rack up a consistent 20 to 25 touches. Because if we get 25 good touches out of Braden Cook, we're going all right.
Yeah, no, look, he's got some real classy bits about him, but he just doesn't get it enough, mate. That's as simple as that.
Yeah,
and like you said, he's got to learn to get put a 20+ game together with all those good bits that he's got, and then he'll be a really good player for us. I mean, he's got the ability.
I don't actually think he would ever have really... He probably doesn't know how it feels to rack up 20 posies, because he's never really played in that kind of role. Like at Southsea was an opportunist half forward, if I remember rightly, and like a bit of a late starter, and it was a bit mercurial and all the rest of it. And I think he actually needs to get used to understanding what a high possession game feels like, because I think sometimes players just need. It's like a cricketer, a batsman coming in, and your first ton, you don't really know what scoring 100 runs is until you do it a couple of times. Sadly, I still don't know to this day.
But me either, mate.
but once you've done it a couple of times and you get a feel for being out in the middle for a long time and pacing your innings and all that sort of stuff, I think it's the same with football. I think sometimes you just have to learn what it feels like to rack up 25 touches.
Yeah, I think I'd drop him back to the twos. I'd actually get him to have runs in the middle as well to make him work out a little bit harder as well, and then back to the forward lines as well. So I think you're right. He's just got to learn to rack up more possessions, because he has got skills, he's got talents, but 8 possessions not good enough.
No, and I think the perfect person to swap him out with now is Daniel Curtin. I think Dan Curtin showed in the 5 minutes that Nix gave him that he doesn't look out of place. He looks better in and up and around the contest rather than stuck defensively. And I think it would be a really good opportunity to give Cook a rest and give Dan the last run for the season.
Well, I totally agree with you. I was going to raise him if you didn't. He had 7 disposals and 1 tackle, and he got a smidgen, I think, of the third quarter, and then at the start of the last quarter, instead of starting on the ground, he just started on the bench for 10 bloody minutes.
Yeah,
I mean, this guy's fresh. The others are tired, and he showed in those few minutes before 3/4 time he's up to it, and yet Einstein had him sitting on the bench while all the tired players are plodding around, just chasing bum again. So
yeah.
Not too bright by getting Nix. I don't think he got very much right today.
No, well, B. Packer in the chat says that Nick said he didn't even want to use the sub today. Imagine that. Imagine making Dan Curtin the sub, a late call-up sub, and then the plan was, I don't want to use the sub today.
Yeah, he did actually say that.
Imagine that. Imagine that. God.
I was vomiting after I listened to his after match presser. Look, if you haven't seen it, listen to it. You won't believe that this idiot is actually saying the things he's saying. And it's just shown to be an absolute bloody goose who's got no idea.
Yeah. Rounding off, Hugh Bond did a couple of nice things.
Didn't disgrace himself, Feen.
No, didn't disgrace himself. Again, he's obviously coming into play very defensive roles, and getting his own ball is probably secondary. But I think that might be selling him short a little bit, because a couple of times he did some really nice things. And, again, why are you limiting a young kid to playing that dour defensive role instead of just letting him have a dick?
The thing I don't mind about it is the fact that if it wasn't playing that role, Nix wouldn't pick him. And at least the kid's getting a game out there amongst it where he'll pick up little bits and pieces. I agree with what you're saying in terms of the principle of it, but having said that, at least I believe he's getting something out of it.
Yeah. And then Himmelberg, as we mentioned, 3 disposals, 2 kicks and a handball. How many marks did he take? 1, I think.
One. He took 1.
Yeah, just a complete waste of a selection. And he was. I mean, I don't necessarily. They're always going to pick Tex, even though I'm on the fence about that. But why bring Tex back in but not drop Himmelberg? I just don't understand it. I know we need a cover for O'Brien in the ruck, but we've got Riley Thilthorpe. He can do 2 or 3 minutes in the ruck if he needs to. Not that I'd particularly like that, but if you're going to bring Tex back in, you can't. It just blows my mind.
Well, yeah, we've been through that. It's just insanity.
Yeah. So it was a very, very. I mean, I was away for the Swans game and the Richmond game, and I could watch it from afar, but I don't really recall because I was half drunk. But this one to me, was probably the worst one of the season. A lot to play for. A team that's going to be our rival supposedly as we move up the ladder over the next 5 years, and we just got absolutely slaughtered at home.
Yes, and Mr. Mathematically
yes, Rabbit,
possible,
just half.
Mr. Mathematically possible. He's instead of saying, "Well, we can't make the 8, the final 8. That chance is gone," which he said that himself. What he said though is we want to finish the season off strongly and win games. So I'm going to bring in some experience. Wouldn't you sensibly go the other way around and bring in juniors and give them games ready for next year? I just can't believe it.
Well, Macca, I hope he does. I hope he brings back in Brodie Smith. I hope he brings back in Matt Crouch. I hope he brings bloody Richie Douglas out of retirement and plays him as well. Because the more he does that, the closer he is to getting the arse, in my opinion, and not because the board and the hierarchy necessarily see it, but because the groundswell of complaints, questioning by the media, all that sort of stuff, will make the club rethink. Because we all know that the club does not act unless there is public outcry. That's their one measure. Media and public outcry. It's happened for the last 10 years. So I hope Matthew Nicks does continue to do stupid things, because the more stupid things that he does, the more it will cost us games and the more it will push him out the door. Because I'm like you. I'm sure Matthew's an incredibly nice guy. I've got nothing against these blokes personally. This is all, we're talking about football here. But
yes.
I don't agree with much that he does as a coach, and at the moment, those of us who don't agree with much that he does as a coach are vindicated, because after 5 years, we're still sitting 15th on the ladder.
Anywhere else, and the coach would be gone. He wouldn't. He'd be gone.
That's right. But
the boys' club, though, they're very hard to move. Very hard to move.
They are very hard to move, but once the pylon starts, we've seen it before, Macca. We've been involved in pylons at the club before, where things have changed, and I think, it's good that in his presser he's starting to get questioned about his selections. It's good that blokes in the national media and the Victorian media are starting to sit up. Like Dermy was relentless against our seniors today. He was relentless,
and he was right.
And he was right.
He was right.
Yeah.
I mean, Murphy, Jesus.
Yep. So, the more it starts being brought up, the more the club will be affected by it. And we know that they have a little PR meter in their office. And as soon as it gets into that orange to red zone, that's when they start taking action.
Well, I think they better have a look at their meter, because I reckon listening to 5AA tonight and listening to yourself and myself, and I think we've been fairly reasonable. There'd be a lot of people out there worse than us in terms of how they feel about it. And I think the club's going to cop an enormous amount of flack after this pathetic performance, because it was woeful. I mean, after half-time, we got 2 goals in the last couple of minutes of the game. They don't count.
We literally went a half a game without scoring a goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they kicked 10. Yeah. I mean, that's just...
On our home deck.
Yeah, and this is a side that Einstein picked that he thought could beat them. So Einstein's got to take the bloody blame for it. He's got to wear it right on his scone.
It sounds like he hasn't. It sounds like he hasn't. It sounds like, again, he's blamed the players. The players couldn't execute. The structure worked, for the first quarter, and then the players couldn't execute. He's blaming the players, and he's got form when it comes to blaming the players. He's always blamed the players. He's never taken responsibility for anything, and that's just another reason why I don't want him around the club. And I tell you what, from the outside in, you get a sense that some of the players, I think, blokes are starting to get a little bit disengaged. They certainly played like a disengaged group in the back half of that game, because I think they just were at all at sea. And when the tide turns with the players' support for what the coach is putting in, it'll turn quickly.
Well, I hope so. That they're a strange club. They put up all that shit for 2 years about the getting a new club rooms. I mean, bloody Port Adelaide had no objections when they had club rooms. They went to the bloody Premier and made the Premier bloody just knocked all the objections out the way and got everything approved for them. Not us. We try and play it by the rule book every time rather than try to be winners.
But it's not even playing by the rule book. It's just being completely arrogant and stubborn, Macca. And again, the people that are making the decisions on blokes like Matthew Nicks are blokes like Adam Kelly. Now, I don't know on what basis we could trust a bloke like Adam Kelly to make a decision about an AFL coach, because he wouldn't have a bloody clue.
Well, that's a very good point, isn't it? It's a bloody good point, actually. Very good point.
This is our general manager of footy operations. The coach obviously reports through to him. Adam should be the one that's reporting via the footy director to the board about bloody coaching performance and how the coach is functioning and all the rest of it. How would Adam bloody Kelly know?
Well,
we've gone down this road before. The reason I'm not throwing things around, and I think the reason why we're probably a little bit more subdued than some people might expect us to be, is because, unfortunately, this isn't a surprise, is it? Our loss today against Hawthorn is not a surprise. I wasn't surprised that we fell in a hole. The moment I saw that team selected, I didn't think we'd win. And unfortunately, I think we've just got a bit of Stockholm syndrome here, Macca, where we keep fronting up and supporting this bloody club, and they keep beating us over the head, and we just keep turning up.
Well, the only thing I would disagree with you is that if we'd had the cast straight after the game, I think you would have banned me for swearing. I was that angry. So. But I've had time to mellow and calm down a bit, then listen to Nick's press, and then I've actually put everything into its right little pigeonhole, and it's made me realise what a terrible position we're in with a coach that can't coach, that's got no idea and won't take the blame for it.
Yeah, so and you can only blame the players for so long as a coach before you lose them.
I mean, I think every team could, even how well they're going, could actually change their selections and pick players that would make sure they couldn't win the game. And that's what our coach did today.
Yep.
He picked a team that couldn't win.
That's correct. All right, well, we could probably wrap it on for another half an hour and just basically vent, but I think we've done it to death, Mac. Next week we've got bloody Geelong in Geelong. So that would probably be a really good time to, throw Dan Curtin to the wolves with a full game in the middle, and we'll bring in Oscar Ryan for a debut. We seem to like debuting kids and burning their careers in that shithole. You wouldn't mind betting that they'll burn someone's career again.
Well, if you listen to what Nick said, we'll have Smith back, and we'll have might even have Crouch back. Who knows who we'll have back?
I hope so.
Well, who knows who we'll have back?
Yeah.
So, I just hope he gives Curtin a full game next week, because I think Curtin showed enough in the small time he got to show that he should be playing at this level, given the position we're in.
Yeah, Buddy says Stengel's already got 3 goals in the game, hasn't even started. Game's a week away. Look, yeah, and Tom Stewart's already taken 6 intercept marks, had 15 kicks. I mean, look, right. Let's make a couple of calls about next week. Let's finish on a light note, shall we, Mac? I reckon that Tom Stewart will get 25 touches and take 10 intercept marks.
In the first 3 quarters?
No, for the game.
I think he'll do better than that. He always has a day out against us. I'll say, I'm going to go as far as to say I'll go 28 touches for him.
Right.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I reckon Jeremy Cameron will kick 6.
That's with 1 foot, and he'll snap another couple with the other.
If Danger plays, he'll probably turn back the clock, Macca. He'll turn back the clock, Danger.
Yep. There, we'll probably be BOG.
And I reckon someone weird like Brian Myers or someone like that will kick 3 or 4.
No, he's very capable of kicking 3 or 4. Yep. Yes, that'll happen.
Yeah.
I'm expecting probably... I know that Geelong aren't absolutely flying, but I would think that if we played anywhere like we did today, it would be, a 12-goal defeat?
Look, I don't think we'll get within 10 goals of them. I really don't.
All we can hope is that it's a wet, boggy day, shithouse day, hard to move the ball, make it a slower loss. No, we won't win next week. If we got within 5 goals, we would have done well.
Yeah, look, Vardy in the chat asking about Dawson being back next week. He should be back in. He was only in concussion protocol, so he'll be back in. Hopefully his foot's okay. Is Isaac due back in next week?
I think he's got 1 to go, hasn't he?
Got 1 more, has he? Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, okay. Look, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I always, all of us support the players when they're out in the ground. We always want them to win and all the rest of it, but this stuff is just so predictable. And sometimes you just think, what are we doing? We just have to wait for the other shoe to drop, and the other shoe to drop is when we get our next coach.
If we get another coach. They are a very obstinate lot. Very obstinate lot.
Well, he can't keep coaching us forever, but I don't think he's our next premiership coach, Macca, that's for sure. And if Tim Silvers... If Tim Silvers and the crowd at the Adelaide Football Club thinks that Matthew Nicks is our next premiership coach, or could even with any team be a premiership coach, then they're watching a different game than I am.
Oh no, he'll never be a premiership coach. Never. I'll be
not at AFL level.
No, we're talking AFL level, and. We're probably at the stage, and I'm quite serious about this, that where change in voice would probably be a good idea.
Look, I think so too. I think that's a very good point, Macca. I think, we all go on about the fact that he was brought in to do a job and bring the club together and kumbaya and all that sort of stuff, and you can argue the point about whether he has or whether that was necessary or what sort of coach we needed at that stage. But irrespective, I think we're at a point now where we need a coach to take us to the promised land, and I think the players. I think the players are starting to look disengaged. I really do think that they were playing like a bunch of blokes that had just thrown their hands up in the air and gone, well, I don't know what to do. And to me, that's indicative of a coach who's run out of ideas and players who still really like their coach, but maybe haven't intellectually bought into what he's peddling anymore.
Well, I think a very good comparison is the coach of the team that we played against today. I mean, they, as you said, they started their rebuild a year later than us. Apparently, he can be a hard coach as well, but he's also a good coach in the sense of acknowledge when they do well. So, but there's no getting away with it if you're not doing the right thing. I think he is the perfect coach to take a team to the promised land. I just think he's got the right coaching philosophies and appears to have the right respect and relationship with these players that gets the best out of them. I mean, because this group has just sort of sprung out of nowhere. Because they were just he was getting them together, getting the right ones in the right place, and then, well, their last few weeks have been astonishing, to be honest.
Well, and the thing about Sammy Mitchell is he was a prick of a player. You know, we all remember how many bloody corkies he used to dish out.
Yes.
But he was also a bloody gun, and he had to do it the hard way. You know, missed out in his draft year, had to go through a second draft year, all the rest of it. You know, was picked low in the draft. It ended up being a Hawthorn champion, played under a great coach. But I reckon, you know, I had... on Saturday, I had the pleasure of going to my old football club reunion, Macca, and I caught up with some blokes that I hadn't seen for a long time. And it was interesting, you know, the people that you remember from those days, and you know, you get along with some players better than others and some blokes better than others and all the rest of it. But you always had respect for the blokes that walked walk the walk. You know, so words are cheap, but actions mean everything. And the blokes and I'm sure every footy club's the same. You know, you got blokes that you wouldn't socialise with them or whatever, but they make you walk a foot taller on the footy field, and you go into battle with them. And I don't know whether Matthew Nicks has got the same credibility as someone like Sam Mitchell, who I reckon would have that air about him.
Very good point. Because Mitchell qualifies for all those points that you mentioned. He would make you walk taller if you're playing alongside him.
Yeah, I don't reckon everyone would like him, but I reckon everyone would respect him, and that's all you need as a coach. Yep.
And he's got a game plan. That's the other thing.
Well, you know, I mean, game plans only good when they work, and they don't always work. And you know, Hawthorn have got some. They've got a great young group. They've still got a couple of gaps, in my opinion. I reckon you can open them up in defence if you actually have a decent game plan about how to bring the ball in forward. But their midfield is really developing nicely, and they probably just need someone to clunk a mark or two up forward just to offset their smalls. But they're hard to cover. They're hard to cover because all their smalls are tough and they're gritty, and they've all got good skills, and they're all mercurial. They can all kick a goal, and you know they can all get up and about. So there's a lot to work with there.
Yep, and he's done a good job of them, and they've responded well. They're definitely a team on the rise, and we're one that's going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, so no one thinks we can win next week, so we'll probably get up by 5 goals in a famous victory. But look, thanks to everyone who's joined us on Discord and YouTube and Facebook tonight. You know, very difficult game to get up and about on the podcast straight after the match. We try to be objective. It's hard not to be a downer, but we try to be objective. You know, there's no point being a happy clapper, is there, Mac? You got to call it as you see it, right?
Well, yes, and as I said, the worst thing I did was listen to Nick's presser after the game, which even made it even worse because I had the game and his presser to deal with. But no, you just got to call it honestly how you see it and how you feel about it. Otherwise, there's no point being here saying things.
That's right. So we'll be up and about again. Don't forget, if you are listening on any of our platforms and you haven't yet joined our Discord community, please get along and do so. The links to that are in all of our profiles. So get around it. It's a good chat during the course of the week and on the weekends with the matches and also the live streams. Also, as I mentioned before, if you're watching us on YouTube and you haven't yet done so, please consider subscribing and giving us a like and share it amongst your friends. If you're listening on iTunes and you haven't done so and you feel so inclined, it'd be great to get a review. We seem to only ever get negative reviews on iTunes, Mac. The last negative one was about you. I had to complain about that one. It was very personal.
What did they say?
Oh, I can't remember because I got it taken off. It was a little bit derogatory. But so anyone who feels like giving us a positive review on iTunes.
I don't know, but see, I don't really care if people say want to say anything.
No, I know, but good reviews are good, Mac. So you just sit there back in your armchair and let me promote the bloody cast for a second.
All right.
So
Can I make one more last comment?
We're not finished, but thanks, Mac.
I just wanted to. All I wanted to say was, if you want some entertainment, listen to 5AA on Monday.
Why are you promoting a radio show in the middle of me trying to promote the podcast?
All I wanted
Why would
to
you
say
do that?
is,
no, I don't want you to say that. I don't want you to say that.
It's going to be funny. That's why.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone for your support, and thanks for listening in. We'll be back again next week to talk about the Geelong Day game, of course. But in the meantime, stay safe, have a good week, and we'll see you all next week. Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.